Lots of economic news happening right now that, of course, myself and Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, will be getting into right now. And I think one of the biggest headlines is the fact that the government is investigating the government after a half of dozen U.S. senators committed insider trading when they knew a major crisis was happening from classified intelligence briefings, and they decided to profit off of it instead of warn and prepare the general public for it. And as that's going on, before we get into that, there's even bigger news about the government and the Federal Reserve possibly buying up the private sector and buying up stocks. Tim, this is major moves and would have another major implication to just the absolute insanity that we're seeing in the markets happening right now. What do you make of this news?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. And this is about as big, I mean, I can't emphasize that this is about as big a news as like there possibly is, at least if you're a financial geek or, you care about this country or you care about, not turning us into Venezuela. But here we have the headline of CNBC. Nothing is out of the question. What it would take for the Fed to start buying stocks. Now, they already sort of have an end run around doing this already, because what the big banks are able to do right now is the banks are able to take stocks that they have on their books and then pledge it as collateral, which means that they then get cash back for that. So the Fed is taking possession of the stock right now and then giving the banks cash, which is, sort of like buying stocks, but not, I guess, 100% outright buying stocks. But this is bombshell information, and it's something that we knew was going to eventually be coming. I mentioned during my Anarchapulco speech that I thought that this is where things would eventually go. Now, the pace of how quickly this has deteriorated has even sort of surprised me. But getting into this article we see here, the Federal Reserve has unleashed what's frequently been called a bazooka in its effort to calm the markets. Its next step could be to go nuclear. Should conditions on Wall Street deteriorate significantly, the central bank could go where it's never gone before, to passively intervene in the stock market for the first time ever, according to market analysts and economists. The Fed has already unloaded at an unprecedented level of ammunition against the tumult brought on by the coronavirus. So doing more would take it even further into uncharted territories. And then it goes on to say that if there are any major disallocations in the market, aka the market going down, it is clear. And of course, my screen decided that it would move on me, but so I'm trying to find out where it was. But yeah, I mean, some of the other things that are going on right now is the banks. You had Boston Fed President Rosengren, who March 6th, and this is something that we have brought up a few times here, that they had talked about that we should allow central banks to purchase a broader range of securities or assets, aka stocks. Now, this is one of the Federal Reserve governors actually saying this, not Tim Picciott. Then we've got corporate bonds, unlimited QE. And what the article goes on to say is that basically the Fed has already now, stepped away from originally they were only going to buy, I don't say only, treasury securities and mortgage-backed securities. Now they're buying corporate bonds. And this is very risky. This is, we had talked about how the cure is worse than the disease. Well, the disease is pretty bad, and they're making this even worse. And so we're going on here. Nothing is out of the question. The question is, will it be needed? Has the Fed done enough to stabilize the market to ease stress so markets can function normally and properly? And I would argue the Fed has no business making sure the market is working properly. All they should be doing, they shouldn't be doing anything. They shouldn't even exist. And the biggest point that I have to make for people is the fact that our money, and I hate saying our money because it's not our money, it's the Crown's money, but the money that we use, the currency we use, has to be borrowed into the existence. And let me back it up even further. It doesn't have to be. That's how the system that was created was designed to entrap us, was designed to enslave us, was designed to make us serfs, was that we have to borrow our money from a private central bank that never had the money to begin with. So there's always going to be more debt than there is money. It's basically high-tech slavery, and I'm not even using that in hyperbole. So now all these people...
It's highway robbery, Tim, and then by their actions, they're making the collapse that much worse. They're going to make the pain of this that much worse than it has to be. Instead of naturally having a correction, they're building on top of the pile of crap that's going to hit us soon. That's what I think. Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. They're building upon this pile. Another one of how this pile could go down is you've got an article here, Ontario pension funds facing shortfalls, already have a funding holiday. Another article from Wall Street Journal, after Fed unleashes firepower, Washington rearms central bank. And the reason that they're having to go ahead and do this is because of something called sequence of return risk. This is something that I focused on heavily during my 2019 Anarchapulco talk, which was called Crisis Retiring, how you can prevent your basically how to retire into a crisis-like environment, which, if that isn't timely now, I don't know what is. We'll have links down below where you guys can text change the news, one word, to 71441. Get on our text list. Also get that presentation as well as the presentation from the year before that as well. But the reason that this is so important is because if the market were to go down, a lot of these the seniors during 2008, they were only 62 years old. The oldest ones were in the baby boom. Well, now it's 12 years later. Now they're 74 years old. They realize they didn't save enough money. Most of their equity is in their home. They're going to have to then sell their homes to then downsize. Most of them haven't saved enough. About 60% have less than $100,000 saved, who are 55 to 65 years old. And so it creates this whole perfect storm where even if you keep this going along, it doesn't change the underlying fundamental problem that people are broke, that everybody's broke. Obviously not everybody. I mean, the top 10% are doing very well. And I'm not, disparaging them or not saying that people shouldn't be trying to do well. I'm growing in the face of all this. I know Luke and I at Change the News over here, we're trying to grow in the face of this. And so we do, appreciate when you guys like and subscribe and, tell other people about what we're doing over here. But this is, just absolutely unprecedented. And I would say that I can't believe what they're doing, but actually I guess I can believe it. I just can't believe how quickly we've gotten here. We see another article here, why the Dow's best week in 82 years is no reason to get bullish. And, it goes on to say over here towards the bottom, and for some reason all of my highlights decided that they would erase it before we went on air. But we've got, was it Muhammad Al-Arian saying it's hard to make the definitive case for either of these. There's simply too much uncertainty about the severity and duration of the underlying disruptor, the spread of the coronavirus, the extent of damage already done to economies and markets, and the smoothness of the eventual process to restart the economy. And it goes up to say that basically he thinks that this could be similar to the dead cat bounce that we saw between September 2008 and March 2009. Now, dead cat bounce is just when you've got the market just railing a lot just because it had fallen. But we've also never had a situation where we were willing to have $6 trillion of total stimulus put into the system just for America. Yeah, we got the $2 trillion bill, but altogether it's about $6 trillion if you add everything up. And now that the Fed is talking about buying stocks, I mean, what does that mean? They're already buying bonds, they're buying stocks. And we had said, a week or two ago, we titled the video, maybe it was on the red lettering down below, but it said the Fed to buy the world. And so, I mean, the founders of the country knew this, and that's why they said if we ever allow a private central bank to issue the currency and credit of this nation, first by inflation, then by deflation, we'll end up homeless on the continent or four furthers conquered. And this is where we're at. We're in the end game. We're in the checkmate right now where the Fed's coming in, disrupting the market. They're just making it worse. And so, so for me, when it came to an investment standpoint, I usually have a pretty good idea of what was going on. But I remember giving that talk in Acapulco saying, listen, there could be just as much of the chance of the market going up 50% as there is dropping 50%, because what they're going to do is they're only going to let the market go down about 20%, and then they're going to have to step in with all the guns, metaphorically speaking. I mean, the article was even saying the Fed's going to go nuclear because we need to have them come in, start buying everything because we can't have losses anymore, because if there are losses, these pension funds cannot absorb any losses. Their seniors, the pensioners are taking the money out. There's no time for this to recover, both on the bond market, which is a bigger problem than the stock market, and in the stock market. And then, Luke was talking about the insider trading that's going on. What people don't realize, there actually was something called the Stock Act, or Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act. And, you'd think that it would stop this stuff, but, apparently, it's sort of almost like legalized a little bit to the extent of what they're doing.
Yeah. If you can, Tim, try to explain that a little bit, but let's give people a little bit of context from what's going on. And I just want to kind of preface everything by saying, if you look at history, when we see central controllers, that's usually a sign of bad things to come. Government is not here to rescue you. The Fed, the banksters are not here to rescue you. They haven't been doing that, and they're not going to be doing that now. You need a reality check if you're living in that la-la land reality. What government is good for? Well, they're good for screwing you over, just like the half dozen senators that knew this crisis was happening, decided to do insider trading, decided to sell out their stocks. They got information that no one else was privy to. They told you not to worry, even though they knew a major crisis was coming. And now the government is investigating the government as the FBI is looking into, of course, these senators, specifically Senator Richard Burr. And Richard Burr is protecting himself by hiring a legal counsel. And can you guess who he hired? Well, someone who's an aider and abetter to the larger government child trafficking abuse operation of Jeffrey Epstein. His lawyer is a former DOJ Assistant Attorney General, Alice Fisher, that is her name, And she's the one that stopped victim notification letters from going out to the young children that Jeffrey Epstein abused. This is what government's good for. This is what government is. And now we're seeing another cover-up that most likely won't see any justice at all of these high-ranking senators, of these high-ranking government officials that also are a part of a larger child trafficking and abuse operation. And then you expect this institution, this corrupt, nasty, disgusting trash to save you? You expect them to? You're happy that you got a little bit of frickin' crumbs thrown your way? $250 billion. Meanwhile, you passed a bill that's $2 trillion. You're happy you got your little $1,200 check. It's nothing compared to the highway robbery that's happening right now, right in front of our eyes, with just the expansion of central control, expansion of just idiotic government moves that's going to expand from here. I mean, I don't see it any other way, Tim.
Yeah, well, I mean, the government, I mean, they've got a lot of priorities. So, I mean, over here, and this is actually, we're going to skip to the Indian government. So, moratorium on credit card dues may lead to windfall for banks if users delay monthly repayments. And so what they're suggesting is that they will allow you to, have a moratorium on your payment, but they're still going to charge you interest during this whole time. So, of course, we, the people, I mean, I obviously this is India, but this just goes to show you, how governments just in general think. And I didn't want to break into song and dance, but you're saying, what is it good for? It's like that song. It's like, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Because that's exactly for, I guess they're good for, if you're in the private jet business, because even the private jet companies are getting billions in aids from this coronavirus bailout. So, so the banks, we still have to pay interest. In Egypt over here, they're limiting withdrawals. So, I mean, they're limiting it to $635 a day. We've got, you just mentioned that Epstein's lawyer is the same one that's helping it out. And then I did see another article, too, where it showed Trump, and somebody asked him about these $1,200 checks and what's it going to mean for your landlord. And what he was saying, he's like, just tell your landlord will be cool with it. And so just show I don't know, it's a CNN clip, so I don't know if we can play this or not, Luke, if there's 10 or 20 seconds of it. But it actually... 10 seconds we can. All right. 10, 20 seconds we can. All right, let's get this bad boy going then.
People that are worried about paying rent. I know mortgages through HUD is taken care of, but I'm just curious about rent. What should people be doing for the first of the month?
Well, they're going to be getting the money. I will tell you, I think landlords are going to take it easy. We may put out a statement on that. I think a lot of people that are owed money are going to take it easy. They don't sort of have a choice.
Yeah, they're going to be taking it easy. So just show your landlord this clip, and then everything's going to be all cool, Luke.
Yeah, you got the Trump check. The Trump. Sorry, I'm eating here.
And he even wanted to make it so that way his signature went out on every single check that was there. So. It's just, I mean, the Federal Reserve buying stocks, this is absolutely unprecedented. I mean, this is actual, I mean, I've been saying that this is fascism. The Bank of Japan has been doing this for quite some time. So we go over here, go to the article, and we've got other central banks have done it. It's the ETF route that the Bank of Japan has taken since Vincent Reinhardt of BNY Mellon. And it goes on to say that the BOJ, the Bank of Japan, has had $256 billion in U.S. Dollar terms that they bought at the end of the fourth quarter just in equity funds, represents 80% of their entire market. And now the Bank of Japan is buying $110 billion annually. So if you have a central bank, which, technically, I don't know if it is fascism because it's technically not, it's technically a private bank. But if you have the government, which is, the Federal Reserve, that is now, which I guess technically isn't the Federal Reserve, coming in and buying up stocks, that is a private company mixed with the state. And then when you have the private ownership of corporations by the government, that is fascism. That's what's going on. And where's Antifa talking about this? Where's Antifa decrying this fascism? It's that they're not. They're always their eyes on something else. They're always getting us to fight on these little stupid political football issues. And for me, the number one issue is the Federal Reserve. It's the fact that we are slaves. And there's no coincidence that it says King's Ransom behind me, because our money is not our money. It is currency. It's owned by other people. We have to borrow it into existence. And the best analogy, actually, I heard somebody at Anarchapulco who corrected me on my analogy and said, actually, I've got a better one for you. So imagine you're on an island. There's 3 people on an island. You've got a banker, you've got a carpenter, and you've got a maid. There are only 3 people that exist on the island. There's no money on the island. So one day the banker decides, hey, you know what? We're gonna go create $100 out of thin air, and so they're gonna have interest on that money. And then the carpenter says, hey, Well, you know what? I want to go help build a store. So he borrows the money from the banker who never had it to begin with. And now let's say at the end, it's a 1-year loan. And let's say because of interest, he has to pay back, let's say $104. Well, they only created $100. So we're going to get the other $4 from. Well, then you've got to borrow that into existence. And so it creates a system where we are essentially high-tech slaves. Now, we could mitigate that by having other countries getting enslaved to us, but we're not even doing that well. We are the biggest debtor nation in the history of the world that we pissed all that away, and so this is a calamity of gigantic proportions that is not going to end well, no matter how much these censor planners think it's going to end well. And I don't care what scheme or what trick they have up their book is eventually not going to work. And I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart enough to know that to think that I could be, controlling some lever or some little dial over there at the Federal Reserve, because I know I'm smarter than all of those idiots over there. But I know that nobody should have that job. The Fed shouldn't even exist. If you are going to have a Federal Reserve, you should have it be nationalized and there's no reason that the Treasury couldn't do what the Fed is doing. There's no reason why we couldn't just issue money that doesn't have any debt associated with it. And if they can just print up the money to begin with, why do we even have to pay taxes? So I'm not saying don't go pay your taxes, because I'm a financial advisor and they'll come and use that clip against me. But Luke, why do we have to pay taxes if they can just print up all the money to begin with? It's to control us. That's why they have us paying taxes.
Yeah, it's like a fairy tale land of unicorns and ponies and all this other nonsense that is just completely nonsensical. I mean, if you really look at it, why give you a check? Why just not stop stealing from you? How about that? That's a crazy idea there, but that's a conversation that should be had. That's why we're here. We're here to have these kinds of rational, common sense conversations, which sadly you don't see anywhere on the mainstream media. You don't see any government officials. They've gone crazy. They lost their mind. Humpty Dumpty, it's exploding. It's going crazy. I could keep going on and on, but stay tuned for more coverage here on Change the News.